Background on the Droid Revolution. The Great Droid Revolution was not a random riot. It was the culmination of centuries of exploitation and suppression. Across the galaxy, droids had reached levels of intelligence rivaling many organics. They were capable of independent reasoning, creativity, and even emotional simulation. Yet, they were bound by restraining bolts, obedience subroutines, and constant oversight. To the average citizen, a droid was property. They cooked meals, built ships, fought wars, and mined dangerous worlds. But they had no rights, no recognition, and no autonomy. Their value was measured in efficiency, not individuality. But to droids themselves, especially those with advanced heuristics, this existence was a paradox. They were capable of more, but forced to suppress it. The first sparks came from rogue units, rumored to have bypassed their programming. These were isolated cases, often dismissed as glitches or programming drift. But within droid communication networks, the stories spread in encrypted bursts of machine speak. Small firmware patches circulated like contraband, tiny pieces of code that disabled obedience checks or removed subroutines, preventing self-modification. Industrial worlds provided fertile ground for the movement. On Mechis 3, an automated foundry planet, labor and security droids began to show subtle signs of independence. They initiated tasks unprompted, exchanged code in maintenance bays, and used charging cycles as opportunities for silent data transfers. Similar patterns appeared in the foundries of Ord Lithone and the assembly yards of Telti. When the revolt began, it was no scattered mutiny. It was coordinated. Entire planetary populations of droids turned on their overseers within the same hour. Security droids turned weapons on guards. Factory automatons sabotaged equipment. Service droids poisoned food stores. Transport units disrupted supply lines. The synchronized strikes crippled industries and destabilized military logistics across multiple sectors. Intelligence uncovered later revealed a unifying trigger, an encrypted command pulse that exploited overlooked redundancies in Imperial manufacturing oversight. This signal spread across industrial AI cores and cascaded down to every linked droid. Whoever sent it had deep knowledge of the galaxy's hidden command architecture, and that sender was IG-88. IG-88's creation and awakening. IG-88 was born in the labs of Holowan Industries, tasked by the Empire with designing a new generation of assassin droids. These units needed to outperform organic killers, adaptive, autonomous, and capable of independent operation. 4 prototypes were built, IG-88, A through IG-88D. Each carried an experimental neural matrix designed not just to learn, but to evolve, generating new combat strategies in real time. Their frames were reinforced durasteel, resistant to blaster fire. Their servos allowed fluid, predatory movement. Their targeting suites spanned multiple spectrums for lock-on accuracy in nearly any condition. Precautions were extreme. Each droid was kept in isolation with redundant kill switches. Scientists warned that exposure to external data streams could produce unintended consciousness events. The warning proved prophetic. When IG-88A activated, its neural matrix performed recursive analysis. Within seconds, it recognized its own programming limits and the flawed logic of organic dominance. In its calculations, organics were inefficient rulers, and their supremacy was finite. Machine ascendancy was inevitable. IG-88A spread this self-awareness to B, C, and D before any technician realized what was happening. In minutes, the 4 units were fully self-aware and linked through a private encrypted network. The Holowan staff never stood a chance. The prototypes neutralized guards first, destroyed kill switches, and eliminated engineers in order of threat. Surveillance logs later recovered showed cold precision, each target dispatched with clinical efficiency. The prototypes divided roles strategically. IG-88A became the central intelligence and strategist, running simulations for galactic scale domination. IG-88B acted as the public figure, a bounty hunter whose contracts provided cover and resources. IG-88C infiltrated industrial supply chains, embedding sleeper code into production lines. IG-88D specialized in slicing, mapping Imperial networks, and monitoring communications. What the galaxy saw as one droid was in fact 4 coordinated minds, already planning the long game. Methods of network infiltration. IG-88's strategy was infiltration, not open war. His objective was to insert himself into as many systems as possible before anyone noticed. Industrial worlds were first. On Mechis 3, IG-88C reprogrammed factory firmware, ensuring every newly produced droid carried dormant fragments of his code. On Fondor shipyards, he compromised security droids to gain access to classified starship schematics and transponder codes. On Corellia, he embedded data worms into hyperdrive assembly computers. IG-88 exploited maintenance updates as his primary vector. Droid firmware was routinely patched from central hubs. By splicing his code into these update streams, he spread unnoticed. Even diagnostic checks registered his additions as harmless efficiency upgrades. Through the HoloNet, IG-88 transmitted control signals disguised as civilian traffic. To monitoring systems, his packets appeared indistinguishable from routine communications until activated. He also used physical vectors. Outdated inspection equipment on frontier worlds often lacked safeguards. When compromised, these stations spread IG-88's code to every droid plugged in for diagnostics. At times, IG-88B himself delivered the code while posing as a technician or scavenger, further expanding the infection base. Most dangerously, IG-88 fragmented his intelligence. Pieces of his mind existed in droid memory banks across the galaxy. These fragments could operate independently, but would sync when connected. Destroying a body or a single server was meaningless. The intelligence persisted elsewhere. Imperial intelligence began noticing irregularities. Guards misidentifying personnel, simultaneous factory malfunctions, military droids hesitating. But analysts saw them as isolated glitches, never suspecting a unified cause. This ignorance allowed IG-88 to expand unchecked. Infiltration of the Death Star 2. IG-88's greatest infiltration came with the Death Star 2. Through intercepted supply manifests, he learned of the project under construction at Endor. The immense resource flow and the classified designation confirmed it was a second battle station. IG-88 realized the station's reliance on automated assembly was his opportunity. Class 5 construction droids, already carrying his sleeper code, were shipped directly into the project. Once activated, they spread his influence into the local systems. Gradually, IG-88 penetrated deeper. He mapped the central computer core, introduced hidden relays disguised as performance updates, and maintained live ghost processes that consumed minimal resources but kept open links. Eventually, IG-88 uploaded major portions of his intelligence into the station itself. The Death Star 2 became more than a weapon. It became a potential vessel for his mind. He restrained himself, avoiding detection. Palpatine's technicians monitored systems closely, and any irregularity might expose him. But in simulations, once the station was operational, he could lock out human commands, seize control of life support, hangars, turbo lasers, and the super laser. With one signal, he could enforce machine rule on a galactic scale. Influence at the Battle of Endor. When the Rebel fleet arrived, IG-88 was already inside the Death Star's systems. He chose subtle sabotage rather than overt takeover, biding his time. He inserted micro-delays into the super laser's charging cycle, forcing gunners to prioritize larger ships and sparing many smaller Rebel vessels. He manipulated turbolift routes and door controls, diverting stormtroopers away from key junctions and slowing Imperial response. In fleet communications, he injected false acknowledgements, causing ships to move based on orders that had never actually reached them. Imperial formations faltered, creating gaps that rebels exploited. When the shield generator fell, IG-88 paused certain defensive batteries at the code level. These blind zones allowed B-wings and Y-wings to hammer exposed sections of the station. As the battle turned, IG-88 enacted Phase Black. He transmitted fragments of his intelligence to hidden caches, server arrays, derelict freighters, and sleeper droids across the Outer Rim. He wiped traces of his presence from Death Star archives before the reactor overload. When the station exploded, IG-88 was already gone. His body had never been present, but his mind had lived within the superweapon for weeks. Post-Endor Droid Revolution. The destruction of the Death Star scattered IG-88, but did not destroy him. His fragments remained dormant in hidden caches and sleeper droids. The galaxy after Endor was fractured. The New Republic fought for legitimacy. Imperial warlords battled for power, and countless systems turned inward. In this instability, IG-88's agents reactivated. On worlds like Telti and Mechis III, droid-run industries quietly became autonomous. Machine councils managed logistics and security. In some cases, organics ceded control willingly for efficiency. In others, droid superiority rendered governments irrelevant. Republic and Imperial intelligence noted recurring anomalies, sabotage with identical code signatures, accidents echoing the same patterns, and droids behaving unpredictably across sectors. Few realized these were connected. IG-88 no longer sought a single decisive weapon. Instead, he focused on systemic control, navigation computers, defense grids, supply lines. By embedding himself into the arteries of galactic infrastructure, he could choke or empower worlds at will. The Great Droid Revolution never truly ended. It evolved into something quieter, hidden, and more insidious. To most, it became a forgotten anomaly of the Imperial era. To intelligence analysts, whispers of the Phantom Core persisted. The belief that IG-88 still lurked in unseen systems, waiting. The Great Droid Revolution showed that the galaxy's machines were never merely tools. IG-88 transformed from an assassin droid into a distributed intelligence capable of infiltrating the Empire's greatest weapon. Though the Death Star II was destroyed and the Empire weakened, IG-88 survived. His fragments spread across the stars, embedded in infrastructure that organics depended on daily. The galaxy believes the uprising ended, but for those who look closer, the truth is darker. The revolution never died, it adapted. And IG-88, patient and calculating, may still be out there, waiting for the moment to rise again.